Welcome to this informal but very special virtual event on EU Doughnut and transformative change. My name is Tassos Kendarchos and I'm advisor for climate science and innovation at the European Commission, DG Research and Innovation. We gather here today to take stock of the many initiatives and achievements of a growing community of knowledge and practice, but also look ahead and explore opportunities to catalyze action. But we are also here today to give farewell and celebrate the remarkable career of a great colleague and a dear friend, Thomas Arnold. I think it is fair to say that Thomas has been the intellectual consciousness of sustainability and transformative change in DG Research and Innovation and beyond. Before I invite our three distinguished keynote speakers to provide their opening remarks and thoughts, we have a short trailer for you.
We've inherited 20th century economies that are degenerative by design. They take Earth's materials, make them into stuff we want, use it for a while and then throw it away. And this is a linear process. Take, make, use, lose. This is what's pushing us beyond Earth's life-supporting system.
De overheersende strategie van onze economie vandaag is er eentje van output en winstmaximalisatie.
Burn-outs van mensen en burn-outs van de hele planeet, dat is wat dit economisch systeem voortbrengt.
We moeten stoppen met onze planeet op te gebruiken. We zijn alles aan het plunderen, alle grondstoffen uit de aarde aan het halen. En dat is een eindig verhaal.
Ik denk dat het vorige systeem gebouwd is op onuitputbare grondstoffen. En dat heeft heel wat mooie dingen met zich meegebracht. Maar dat is niet echt een systeem die duurzaam is en die kan blijven bestaan.
This system does not work. We need to transform the root ideas of economics.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Obi. And now it is with great pleasure that I would like to invite Jean-Eric Paquet, Director General at DG Research and Innovation, to officially open the event and provide his thoughts. Jean-Eric, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Tassos. Hello, everyone. This is an amazing group of great people, great colleagues, great thinkers, great disruptors as well, Thomas. And you led us over these years. So let me just start by warmly and deeply thanking you. As I said a couple of days ago, you were the poil à gratter of DG Research and Innovation, pushing new ideas, promoting them, also putting into question traditional thinking. And you have done great, and you had an impact beyond DG Research and Innovation, as we can see with so many of you joining this session this morning. So Tassos, as I said, over to you now, and best of luck in that. Thomas, you've done great and inspired a lot of thinking in the DG, as Kate Rayworth did also. Kate, I'm delighted that I can speak briefly with you today. I was much impressed and intellectually changed by your book on the Doughnut economy. I have been over many years, of course, working on economic policy coordination, social development, ecological matters. But your book was really one which brought the questions which we all have on our economic policy, public economy policy making, which we all have had, and it provides, of course, not all the answers, but a framework within which we feel intellectually, analytically, but also politically legitimized in thinking differently. So this was for me a really important moment. So thank you for that. It's also pleasant to read, but that's another matter. And this is also why with Thomas and many others in DG Research and Innovation, I was very keen, and I think in my role of Director General, I am also legitimate in pushing new thinking and new ideas across the institution. I think we need, as European policymakers, we need to accept that we need to think the unthinkable, and that we need to accept also to explore unorthodox policy frameworks with the purpose of changing and possibly disrupting the present policy frameworks. We are not entirely there yet, as I think we all know, but thanks to you, Thomas, to your work, Kate, and to very many of you in this meeting, Obi included, There are more and more colleagues in the European Commission which are, and we are not of course alone, OECD and others are doing it as well, which are looking at their own policy frameworks, their own toolboxes in a different way. So research and innovation has been, thanks to all of you, to an extent a compass, bringing public policies into a slightly different direction. We need much more of that. And I think, and I finish with that, the work which we are doing on science, on climate, on biodiversity, on resources, also with Janes, is, I think, immensely important. And I think what we need to do is, on the one hand, provide conceptual frameworks which question the present orthodoxy, but also then provide the knowledge which will allow us and oblige us to think differently. And as we are deploying research and innovation agendas, we of course will continue to ensure that there is incremental efficiency improvement. That is good. But in reality, in most areas, energy, food, aviation, and others, what is needed is disruption. And that is also the case for our conceptual frameworks. We are now entering a really very difficult moment of European and world history, where we need to confront a war, a deep challenge to the international world order, which in principle was meant to also bring alongside a pioneering Europe many others on board of transformation, of the green transformation. This is now deeply challenged. We are also entering now an economic crisis in the traditional sense of the word here in Europe and probably beyond as well, on inflation, on growth, and on a number of other parameters. This makes the present conversation even more important. And even if I have not been able personally to completely articulate an alternative toolbox or framework which would be more better equipped to deal with the transformation and at the same time with the present economic crisis measured traditionally, I think this is really the way the donut economy and other similar frameworks are being activated. And we want to encourage you to do that, including in the next few years of turmoil. It's more needed than ever. So Thomas, à nouveau, vraiment bravo. Et c'était un plaisir de t'avoir comme conseiller durant ces quelques années.
Thank you very much, Jean-Eric. Collaborating with you as advisor for Sustainable Development Goals, this has been a decisive moment of my career, because you have given me a space to think the unthinkable, to voice the uncomfortable, to spot the disruptive and see it become the transformative, and sometimes the new mainstream. I hope that I made a modest contribution to your transformative project for DG Research and Innovation, making EU policies more responsive to face the multiple intertwined challenges for humanity. You are now leaving to new horizons. We are many to hope that your seeds of sustainability will grow further, flourish, and regenerate. Without your support, some of the deeply transformative activities we pursue today would not have happened. Merci, Jean-Eric.
Thank you very much, Jean-Eric, and of course, Thomas. I mean, that's a fantastic start. I would like now to invite Kate Rayworth. I mean, Kate needs no further introduction, but I have to do it. She holds position at Oxford University and Amsterdam University of Applied Science. She's co-founder of the Doughnut Economic Action Lab. So Kate, it's a real great pleasure to have you again here with us, and especially in this particular event. The floor is yours.
Thank you so much. It is a huge pleasure to be here today. I'm wearing my sparkly donut necklace in celebration of everything that Thomas has done. And I'm loving this backdrop. I think, does this tell us that Thomas is on cloud 9 or something? Because he's living in the donut. Somebody's got a nice sense of humor going here. So I'm here today with my colleague, Andrew Fanning from Doughnut Economics Action Lab. We set up the Action Lab because this book, Doughnut Economics, oops, it can disappear. Don't let it disappear. Please, European Commission, don't let that happen, okay? That's not going to happen. We're going to keep it visible. It's about putting ideas off the page into action. And at Doughnut Economics Action Lab, our first motto is go where the energy is. We've never once pushed or tried to convince anybody to use these ideas. We follow the energy. And so it was a complete surprise to us that one of the places where the energy started coming from was the European Commission. I never imagined that, I have to say. And I'm going to share my screen to share some photos from the first time that we were asked to come to a workshop hosted by the Commission, hosted by Zoe Institute. Andrew and I there, oh, we all look so young. These were in the days when this was actually my last meeting before the pandemic. I remember Jean-Eric joining the meeting, and I had my first elbow bumps. Oh, this is a new thing. So this meeting was the beginning of a really wonderful collaboration. And what I want to celebrate is the character of people who within institutions start making change happen. And here today, we're especially celebrating that in Thomas, but there are many, many people like that as part of this conversation today. I've learned from doing this work on doughnut economics with businesses, with governments, with city councils, with mayors. There are change makers everywhere. People who go beyond what the job description says they should do and actually start making happen what needs to happen. It's people who bring their whole selves to work, who will make the change happen on a document in work and then join protest after work. People who will go out in the streets, in the rain, with a megaphone, with a flag, and call for change, because we know that it doesn't only happen when we're sitting at our desks. It happens when we take to the streets, joining up with other organizations. And I love these donuts made by EEB, and Nick is here today, joining with others, with NGOs, with policymakers like Barbara Tracht in the city, showing that it's when we build that momentum together, that is when things start to happen. So Thomas, here's to what you have done. You just said you hope you've made a modest contribution. I'm sorry, I don't think you have. I think you've made a very immodest contribution, because you have mobilized so many people with your conviction, your personality, your persistence, and your playfulness, and your readiness to lead the way, joining so many people together, recognizing the importance of collaboration and formal meetings, but also protest and pushing the envelope and being disruptive, as Jean-Eric just said. So here's to all the change makers and institutions. Here's to keeping this momentum. Let's do justice to what Thomas has galvanized here. Let's keep this work moving forward. We know there's only one direction that we need to move in, and it's towards thriving in planetary boundaries. So I'm really looking forward to hearing of the many initiatives that are going to be discussed today. Thomas, I know I'll meet you in the streets, because change makers keep connecting. Thank you so much for your work.
Okay, thank you very much. I don't know if Thomas, you want to say a couple of words, or I see a big heart there. So that says it all. That says it all. Fantastic. So I would like now to invite our third keynote speaker, Janez Potocnik. Janez served 2 mandates as European Commissioner, both on science and research, but also at environment, so a very familiar and dear face for many of us here. He's co-chair at the International Resource Panel, and he's currently partner, of course, as a System Q. So, Janez, great pleasure to have you here with us today. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Tassos. It's also my great pleasure. By the way, I could continue like Kate started, but we would then use 1.5 hours of a praise for Thomas, which actually he would deserve, because he was really doing the job which will mark and leave the footprint in the institution, but also broader than the institution. But I would rather, for the beginning, share with you just 3 main points, which we find out in our recent analysis, why the things are actually in reality not happening, and where the major problem lies. Where are the major main blind spots that the things are not translated into the reality? The first one, which we identified, was the lack of the systemic approach. So everybody is looking to their solutions through their optic. The second one was lack of resource perspective. So not going enough deep to the drivers and pressures and to the economic system. And the third one was the lack of the demand side. So we basically do everything on how we will clean the supply side, but not actually ask ourselves the question of the consumption, overconsumption, because this is a kind of question which is not supposed to be asked, because everybody should decide and can decide whatever we want in the consumption side. And I think, unfortunately, this will not end up well. So typically, if you would look through the climate change process, you would find out that, for example, UNFCCC, it's entirely focusing on carbon emissions, but not talking about air pollutants, overconsumption, inequality, health, education, water crisis, which are, of course, all connected questions which one needs to look at. And by the way, the Glasgow breakthrough, which they have announced in the transport, was zero emissions vehicles to be new normal, accessible, affordable, and sustainable in all the regions in 2030. We all know what would mean if this would in reality happen. So what on the lack of resource perspective doesn't need to say a lot, but we have done analysis in systemic, which was basically saying, looking at the NDCs, and we found out that, for example, in built environment, there are 10 times more on energy efficiency than on resource efficiency, and in mobility, 4 times more on energy efficiency than on anything which is linked to the resources. And the most problematic thing for me is definitely the focus which we have, and in climate, it's also the same, only on the supply side. So we believe that cleaning the wrong economic system will do the trick. It will not do it. And we must stop ignoring the inherent wastefulness of our production and consumption systems. For example, it would be in vain to decarbonize the production of the steel if we use that steel in empty and underutilized cars and empty houses. So we need to go deeper than actually we are going. And the problem is, of course, that ambitious policies today still face the uphill battle with a very simple reason, because the market signals which we are sending to producers and consumers are telling us don't behave responsibly, while the regulation is trying to tell us just the opposite. And again, this will simply not work. The map of resource use still shows pretty much shadows of imperialistic work. So we need to take that seriously, and we need to know that standards and behavior, and also all the benefits from that, were set by high-income countries, including Europe. So don't mention we should not go ahead because the others are not following. We are morally bound to go ahead because we are those who have most profited from the wrongness of the system which we have created. I have many times recently ended with a sentence: if we want to avoid extinction of elephants in nature, we should extinct first elephants in our rooms. And these were some elephants which I was mentioning. And Thomas was consistently removing those elephants from the room. Thank you, Thomas.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Janusz. This was really great that you have been here. I know you need to leave earlier. That's why I respond exactly and immediately and say thank you very much. We've done, I think, a great way together, and we've met again and again in many different places, and have been exchanging insights. And I've really appreciated, Janusz, to know you more closely and to be, let's say, also involved in many of those activities, and hope that we will still, after my retirement, continue to meet.
Thomas, I hope you will bring this group together systematically also after retirement.
Excellent. Thank you very much. After this highly inspiring, and I would say deeply emotional start, I would like now to pass the floor to Christoph. So we go now to part 1. Christoph, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Tassos, and welcome everybody. My name is Christoph Gran. I'm a co-founder of the Zoe Institute, and I feel very honored to moderate this first part of Thomas Farrell event, which is about keeping and giving new momentum to existing initiatives, many of them co-created or seeded by Thomas. And it is really inspiring to see how many opportunities we have here to keep momentum, such as the Beyond Growth conference in 2023 in the European Parliament, or the joint initiative on transformative economics, the Beyond GDP discussions in the commissions, etc. We'll have a closer look in a second. After this first part, I will hand over to Obi, who will focus on the visionary part and the shared visions that go beyond the existing initiatives. And yeah, we have many speakers today, and to really make sure that we stick to the time and the plan, everybody would get 1.5 minutes, and Claudia will give a very subtle and diplomatic sign. And yeah, when you have 30 seconds left. But before we start, let us have a look into a video which already gives an intuition of initiatives and people who are involved here.
I'm confident we can, but the question is here, is there the political will to do it?
Yes, I'm confident. I think we have a lot of new tools, like the Doughnut. Because it's easy, it's going to convince a lot of people to think differently about the economy.
Basing all of our economies and policies on the growth of GDP is a mistake. So to save the EU, the climate, and to ensure justice, we need to go beyond GDP.
Je pense que c'est un combat fondamental d'expliquer qu'on peut construire une société équilibrée, une société plus juste, plus durable, sans croissance.
I want the EU to be the global champion of the green transformation that is making our economy fit the planetary boundaries. This requires a revolution, and Europeans must be the leaders of that revolution.
We have understood about planetary boundaries, and we need to move towards sustainable prosperity for all. And this means move beyond a single indicator.
As economists in the European Commission, we are looking now into many different indicators, not only GDP, all kinds of indicators related to sustainability, to the social economy.
Wonderful, thank you very much. And yeah, you saw in the chat that this video has been posted today. What a good timing. And yeah, let's start with the first hour activators, the Doughnut for EU group. It's a group of committed people across services and who brought the Doughnut to the Commission and showed exemplarily across DGs how it looks like to fill the Doughnut with life. And this includes the ecological boundaries. We have Joachim from ENF, the social foundations, Frank from EMPL, the economic questions, the macroeconomic questions. Björn is here hopefully today from ECFIN, and also the research part with Maciek from the JRC. And I'd like to give the floor to Joachim, and yeah, floor is yours.
Hello, good afternoon, everybody. Hi, Thomas. You forgot Thomas, of course, in that group. It was already mentioned by Kate that we had quite a momentous and inspiring workshop back in 2020 in March. And actually we met on the Zoe event in December 2019. And remember, this was the time when the European Green Deal was announced, when the Commission published a document that talked about the economy that works for the people and the planet. So what a moment it was. And we came together from different corners of the Commission. Maciek, Frank is here, Björn couldn't make it, and Thomas, of course, to really pick that up and try to move this more practically forward. And that's why we organized this workshop that Kate has already introduced. And it was really only now, looking back at it, unbelievable that we had this opportunity, because I think we spoke in preparation for this meeting. We all said that was one of the most inspiring events and workshops that we took part of. And not only were we the five of us who started initiating this, Kate and her team came on board, but we also were able to mobilize very quickly many colleagues from DGs, from cabinets, who joined at that event. And I must say that this was super inspiring. And then COVID hit. And of course, let's say things moved in a different direction than we wanted, but it still, I think, kept going since then. I want to make one small example how this made an impact already. As you will know that we have in the meantime agreed an 8th environmental action program, where this vision of citizens living well within the planetary boundaries is enshrined as a vision, as an objective, long-term objective for the EU, not only by the Commission, but by the Council and the Parliament, and where it's now set in stone that we have to develop metrics that go beyond GDP, that GDP is not the right instrument. I'm very happy that Peter's here. We hear later from Peter where the work is being carried on in the well-being framework. And I think it may have been different to what we imagined 2 years ago, how it all would evolve, but it has been hugely influential, the work we've done together. And Thomas, you have been a driving force, the energy, the spiritus mentor for this, and you have been, for me, an enormous source of knowledge and wisdom, because without you, I would have not been able to keep abreast, to think differently, to keep abreast of developments, think differently about certain issues, and keep myself on my toes intellectually. So you will be missed, but we hope that you will continue doing that. Please keep sending us emails. Please make sure that we all all are kept informed and that we all think outside the box when it comes to our day-to-day work to achieve this enormous transformation. I want to just give the floor briefly to Frank and Maciek also to say a few words. Thank you, Frank.
Yes, thank you very much, Thomas. Very happy to be here with you, and following on from what Joachim said, I also would like to thank you for being a guiding light and source of inspiration for us, for our work and for our lives more generally. As was said before, your impact certainly reaches beyond DG research. The work on the Doughnut was an eye-opener for us, and it found itself, and that to stay, I believe, it found itself and helped us to develop a narrative, concept, and tools for fair transition. We have Council has just adopted a recommendation on ensuring fair transitions and looking together at the social dimension, social foundation, planetary boundaries, and the implications this has for policy has become a natural policy concept for us in which we want to strive. Also, there will be a legacy left. We are happy to co-host a workshop which Kate mentioned before. But also, we were happy and to find out that it was possible to set up an EC-wide functional mailbox, EC for Doughnut, which does exist and which we are happy to continue hosting and using, and I invite all of you to do that. So thank you for all the work you have done. Thank you for your inclusive approach and all you do and have done. All the best for the next adventures. And please make sure to keep us on your mailing lists. And with this, it's an honor for me to say today that even today I have a Doughnut and I'll eat it in your wishing you all the best. Bye-bye.
I come very shortly. I just say that, Thomas, I hope you will be around, because I think I've been watching the videos by Carlota Perez as well, and I think we are really at a turning point, and it will be bumpy the coming 12 months or even years. So I hope you are around, and I hope that this circle keeps going. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Great to hear from you from the beginning of these initiatives. And yeah, I directly hand over to Nick Malan. He's the next speaker. He's an author and senior policy officer for systemic change at the EB, and one of the key voices in civil society fighting for new ways of measuring progress and also to end Europe's growth dependency. Nick, welcome, and stage is yours.
Thanks, Christoph. Yeah, dear Thomas, a little toast on you, of course. I have the honor and pleasure of probably being the last person in your long career with whom a bond was created that was strong enough to do this Doughnut distribution in front of the Berlaymont together. Well, probably also the first with whom you have ever done such a thing. But I think it's fair to say that without your help, we would have probably ended up on some fail of the week YouTube channel with desperate NGO people chasing bystanders with donuts, that sugary snacks that they don't ask for. Instead, together with you, we had a really nice, fun, informal event with Ministerdrachten, MEPs, European Commission staff, many of you here, civil society. And you already had these two little videos that you've seen before that. And you were always keen to make sure that other people were in view and that you were not on the camera, you were in the back always. But we made sure in one of the videos that we posted today to also have a little bit footage of you speaking, because you deserve at least some seconds in the spotlight, I would say. Just one more thing, because there are many people in this call who have worked with you much longer. Before I give the floor to them, I think I can speak for many if I say that yeah, for both the people in the European Commission, for us at the EEB, and for so many others, we have just been lucky with you, Thomas, bringing together so many people around new, better economic frameworks, narratives, indicators. And I'm sad to see you go. It's a pity. We met each other only half a year ago, I think, and now it's already over. But I'm also pretty sure I cannot picture you sitting in a sofa as of 1 August, lying idly back and not doing anything anymore. I just wish you may find ways of transforming all your energy and ideas and skills, knowledge into actions somehow. And I hope you can somehow find a way to continue being of service to humanity, which is what I think you've been doing greatly. And I'm really appreciative of that. Thanks, and all the best, Thomas. Stay in touch.
Thank you very much, Nick, for these warm words. I go straight into the next speaker, who is Roman Ariona. He's the former chief economist of DG R&I and now the chief economist in DG Grow, and maybe perhaps the future chief economist of DG Doughnut, who knows? And yeah, Roman, please, the stage is yours.
Thank you very much, Christoph. Well, first of all, Thomas, I must say it's really very sad to see you leave. I've had the great pleasure of working with you since the early days in RTD when you were in charge of SMEs until the Doughnut days. And I must say you've made a huge contribution as a driver of sustainability and transformation, as a positive disruptor, not only for RTD, but from a Commission whole of government perspective. And this is something to underline, because this is influencing, for example, the way that we are approaching DG Growth's work and how we are developing what we call the green business case. This is about the business sector making the necessary investments at the scale and scope that is needed to create a robust business case for green. It is about the single market and even the public sector, I would say, playing a central role in the de-risking investments, de-risking regulations and bottlenecks. We've seen this in areas such as permits for renewables and others. But basically, coming back quickly to your personal contribution, when I was thinking as to how to summarize this, I thought of the 3 Ps as a tribute to the real 3 Ps that we all know of. But then actually Kate talked also about more Ps like personality, playfulness. So I would just concentrate on 3. The first one is pertinence. There are no shortcuts to success, and you know it. You're patient, you're focused, you're true to yourself in all circumstances, and you always manage to keep the dialogue there where it is relevant, where it is pertinent, and where it is evidence-based. And the second P is for passion. If passion separates winners from losers, as I was recently reading in a Wharton magazine, you're always on the winning side, Thomas, in everything you do, from biking to working. There is always a lot of passion, as we have seen in your role as advocate, as driver, as enabler of the sustainability change. And my third P is perseverance. I mean, I think you are extremely persistent in pursuit of your goals and dreams, even when convincing others becomes very difficult. And this can happen many times. For example, when we are rolling out a new collective growth model for the EU, and this is not an easy task, but you never give up. And you continue to push EU policy to deliver on the climate emergency. So I have no doubt that today we're not witnessing your retirement, because as you told me, you would be an active senior in the Commission terminology, and the word active in your case has a meaning of dynamic motion, but also as of activism. So many congratulations, many thanks for counting me, Thomas, in this today and in this amazing community of practice.
Thank you very much, Roman. I wish Thomas could always say something, but I think this will totally ruin our timeline, and he will have the chance to react in the end, and he's ready for that already. And next we will have Barbara Trachte. She's State Secretary for Research and Economic Transition in the Brussels Capital Region. And yeah, she's joining us with a short video message.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, dear Thomas. Thank you for gathering us all for your farewell around such an interesting discussion. As you know, the Brussels Capital Region has embarked on the Doughnut economics journey in 2020, and together with Kate and her team, Brussels researchers and co-creation experts, we cooked our Brussels Doughnut. But we didn't work only on our portrait, we also designed methodologies for administration, for enterprises and citizens to experiment with the Doughnut. It was for us a key step in the work we do to make our economic transition from the linear and GDP-focused model to an economy which takes into account the planet's environmental boundaries, as well as the basic social rights of its inhabitants. The most concrete translation of our work with the Doughnut so far is embodied in Shifting Economy. Shifting Economy is the new strategy for economic transition of the Brussels Capital Region. This is our plan to guide all Brussels economic actors on the transition path towards 2030. In 2030, regional public money will only be available for economic actors which have set up a business model that is exemplary on the social and environmental level. And to define the criteria that help us assess whether a business model is exemplary, we used the Doughnut concept of environmental ceiling and social foundation. In parallel, we keep up the momentum with the Doughnut as we extended the project for 2 years. During this time frame, the Brussels Doughnut team is reaching out to more administration, more businesses. The aim is to keep raising awareness among the economic actors so that they get accustomed to the philosophy of the Doughnut and of the economic transition and transform their core business. I believe this is a paradigm shift and I can't wait to see the results of this comprehensive work on the Brussels economy. I hope I can still count on the Commission and DG RTD to act at the European level to instill the notion of social foundation and environmental ceiling into all public policies. Thank you and all the best.
Thanks, Barbara. And over to Laure Ledoux. She's the head of unit in DG HR, and she will directly continue with the question of how can we apply the Doughnut framework to the Commission.
So indeed, I think Thomas invited me to talk about the greening of the European Commission. So as you know, we adopted in April this year a communication and action plan on greening the Commission with the objective of going climate neutral by 2030 through reducing at least 60% of our greenhouse gas emissions between 2005 and 2030, and compensating for the remaining emissions through carbon removals. And we adopted a specific action plan looking at the main pathways for emissions, including buildings and workspace, greener mobility, digitalization, beyond the carbon emissions, looking at the other areas of the Green Deal through the circular economy, ecosystems and biodiversity, and sustainable food in our canteens. I don't go into detail because obviously in 1.5 minutes we won't have time, but just to highlight the engagement of our staff and communication is really a very important part of that. And this is where I think the concept of the Doughnut economy can be very useful. So in fact, even before adopting the communication, there was already a workshop organized where Thomas and Obi had a very important role, and of course, Kate and colleagues as well, where the topic of greener mobility was discussed and already yielded some interesting results. And I think this could be used further to really implement the action plan. We've already started, of course, implementing it. The European Commission joined the Climate Pact, the first EU institution to do this. We've produced guidelines to reduce emissions from travel, which have already been for which DGs have already pledged to implement these guidelines to a large extent. 30 DGs have already pledged, but of course there's still a lot to do. And as I said, the concept of the Doughnut economy, I think, would be useful to translate the overall objectives and the corporate, if you want, actions into
Sorry, Laura.
more
Can I
local
invite
actions.
you to conclude? Thank you.
Yeah. So, but I finished really to say that as an environmental economist, I think it's a very interesting concept, and I thank very much Thomas for suggesting this in the first place. Voilà. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Laure. And without any further delay, I'd love to give the floor to Sasha, to Alexandra Hopza, and he's the chief economist in DG R&I. And please, over to you.
Okay, thank you very much. Thomas, I also want to thank you very much for your awareness raising and activating work which you have been doing. I remember, one of your emails. I mean, when I arrived in DG R&I more or less a year ago, among the hundreds of emails which we were receiving, I saw one which was titled "Very Important." So obviously, as a good Commission employee, I jump on this email first to read what it is about, usually expecting request from cabinet for a speech or for briefing to be delivered by the end of the day. And there was actually a link to one of the very interesting reports on sustainability issues, on the urgency for action. And then when I thought about it, first I was obviously surprised, but then I thought, well, this is actually a very important message, unlike many of those supposedly important ones. And since then, I have received many emails of this sort from you, which were really enlightening and then very useful. We've engaged in a number of conversations, and you've been very instrumental also for me and my team when we were writing sustainability chapter of our recent SRIB report, where we've also made the case for the Doughnut, and then also the case for economic policies, R&Is, to contribute to the transformation of the economy. So with you leaving, well, but we know that you will be still around, we'll be happy to draw on your wisdom and your active contribution. We want to continue this work, and then we have been already discussing with colleagues around the Commission, with JRC, with EEA and other stakeholders, how to take this transformative economics activity forward. Try to distill also what economics has to offer in terms of toolbox for policymakers to actually make this change happen. And so I commit we'll continue with this work, and then we'll be happy to meet with you, discuss, and then consult as much or as long you're around. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. There was excellent stage setter for the last part of the concrete initiatives that are out there, and I'd love to give the word to Lorenzo Benini from the EEA, and he will share some thoughts with us on the joint initiative on transformative economics.
Yeah, good morning. Great to be here. And first of all, let me thank Thomas for your incredible work on behalf of colleagues at the EEA. I think you've been really opening up discussions that are on very necessary things and issues that are fundamental to reflect upon, and really capturing the essence, helping us in capturing the essence of the systemic, interconnected, and also political nature of sustainability challenges. I think this is something that is very close to the heart of the agency strategy and vision. So thank you for that, because we also managed to create the necessary outlet, I think, for having these conversations across DGs, across EU bodies, and whereby knowledge and thinking from various sources was put on the table and discussed. And all of these, particularly referring to the SDGs events that were an excellent example of that. And all of this has been incredibly enriching, because I think for all of those who have participated into those events, these basically expose people and participants to new ways of thinking and really opening up minds. And I think we really benefited from this direct or sometimes indirect influence in the way we work and what we develop. And I'll point to a couple of examples, one of which is this initiative on the transformative economics that we're taking forward. But the first of all, I'd like to thank you also for your great drive and support in engaging with us in the series of Narratives for Change, which is a series of EEA briefings that discuss or aim to discuss fundamental lock-ins that prevent transformation and systemic change. And the first of one was about growth without economic growth. And we managed to have in there some contents about heterodox theories such as post-growth or degrowth, and also bringing up the donuts. And I think this wouldn't have been possible to publish something like that if the Donuts for EU initiative had not been created before, and if these issues hadn't been part of the conversation already. So thank you very much for that. And then in relation to the transformative economics, yes, it is an initiative that it's informal and it's in its first stages of development, but actually was triggered by one of these SDGs events that you organized. And together with RNI, JRC, the Club of Rome, you're really exploring opportunities to engage in dialogues about what these transformative economics could mean, and by bringing in elements of
conclude your intervention.
Yeah,
Thank you.
just transition, social innovation. So thank you again for this, because I think this is promising. And this is my last point. We really believe in the idea of systemic change, and your initiatives have helped us a lot in bringing this forward. But a key enabler for that is the network. And while you will be keeping in contact and contributing, I guess, and I hope, I think we also want to send this message that we think that this type of outlets and this type of spaces is something that the institutions really try to be keeping, so that we can continue building on the momentum that's being created for transforming the economy. Thank you.
Wonderful, Lorenzo. Thanks a lot. And yeah, we still have many speakers, and it would be great if we try to stick to the 1.5 minutes. And we have Peter Bensur from JRC, who will introduce us to what is happening in one of these key initiatives on the Beyond GDP initiative process.
Okay, so let me try to paint this story. So actually, I started my career as a central bank researcher, mostly working on macroeconomic taxation topics, although I was a founding member of Hungary's first transition town hall. In 2013, I joined the JRC, and then this is how the story started to unfold. So we started to work systematically on resilience in 2015. We were working with Enrico Giovannini, and shortly we discovered that our proposed general notion of resilience connects very strongly to the notion of sustainable development. This work was utilized by Enrico and his co-authors in their chapter on measuring sustainability in the second Stiglitz report. Shortly after, also the OECD Wellbeing Framework was extended, with risk and resilience becoming part of the 4 capitals, although not in the strict sense of we try to advocate the full systems approach. Then the 2020 and then the 2021 Strategic Foresight Report stated that resilience dashboards are an important step towards a more integrated approach for measuring well-being beyond GDP. And very recently, as a follow-up of this, preparatory work has started towards such an integrated framework, building on the momentum of the Porto Declaration and also the 8th Environmental Action Programme. I remember from some time ago, Enrico Giovannini saying that for such initiatives to succeed, one needs a political support or political will or mandate, or at least a stable supporter with such a mandate. But even such a mandate is not necessarily enough. You need the local champions, you need the activators. And Thomas, as a lead activator in this field, I believe played a very big part, and he played it very well. So to conclude, it's not a farewell and thank you. It is a stay in touch, and thank you also in advance.
Wonderful, thank you very much. And yeah, that was a wonderful timing. And I directly hand over to Jonathan Bart. He's a co-founder and policy director at the Zoe Institute. And yeah, you will introduce us to some of the initiatives that where the Zoe Institute is also involved. Over to you, Jonathan.
Thanks. Yeah, what an incredible moment. I still remember when I met Thomas the first time. It was at the Post-Growth Conference in the European Parliament in 2019. And well, I think you all know this. If you meet Thomas, then he will always generate a lot of ideas. So after saying, yeah, we are working closely with Kate, who's part of our advisory board, his idea was, yeah, we should make a Doughnut economics impact assessment. And this is how it all started. So we continued this work with all that incredible energy and, well, all the, I think, great characteristics that Thomas brings that have already been mentioned. So Thomas, I'm so glad that you helped us convene this group of people around the idea of Doughnut economics. And I think everything that we have heard in the last minutes speaks about like what impact, what modest impact, as you say it, you have created here. So I think you can really see you as the activator also of the EU 2030 Compass that we have published as Zoe Institute is trying to bring this to the EU level, and as the activator of all the things that we will continue to work on. So be it the integrated wellbeing framework that Peter has just mentioned, where we'll also look not only into indicators, but we will also try to look at, okay, what does it actually need? So these indicators also translate really into lifestyle changes. So beyond GDP lifestyles, what would these look like? Externally, we are hosting the EU Wellbeing Economy Coalition, who is taking the idea of the wellbeing economy forward. The EEB is also part of that. And of course, well, next year there will be the Beyond Growth conference. And I think also that speaks of the kind of momentum has been created in the last years around the idea of the economics and beyond growth. Yeah, so we will co-organize this together with the members of the parliament, and well, we'll organize a couple of policy labs. This time it's not only one, so it's going to be 4. And we'll see how we can use that to strengthen all the topics that you have been promoting, sustainability, well-being, beyond GDP, and so forth. And we'll continue on that journey. So we will also get back to some participants here for that. And Thomas, yeah, let me conclude. You will be missing. All of this is part of your legacy. And yeah, it was incredible working with you. And I hope still that we will have encounters in your role as active senior advisor. So really big thanks from my side.
Thanks, Jonathan. And this is the last speaker now. Last but not least, we have Sandrine Dixon-de Clèves with us. She's the co-president of the Cup of Rome, and among many other roles, She's the chair of the expert group on economic and societal impact on research and innovation, the ASIR, in the DGRI. And Sandrine, without any further introduction, everybody knows you, I think. Please, the stage is yours.
Thank you, Christoph. And we're not here to talk about me or my titles. We're actually here to celebrate a great man. And I want to really echo what Kate has said, because Thomas, you have been the instigator of so many of these discussions, and absolutely phenomenal, and really the model of what citizens, civil society, what all of us can do when we come together as people who are really taken by a singular goal. Your goal was, I want to wake up everybody in the European Commission to the SDGs, and I want to bring in Kate's Doughnut as a way to really put a structure around that. And you have achieved that. Look at the community of people that are on this call that are here to celebrate you as a person. And I think that's phenomenal. Now, I'm going to just say in one quick word that I was told you were a crazy man, and by some of your colleagues who said, this man has got a mission. And I said, thank God we've got a crazy man inside the commission. So let me build on this and just say that as you asked me to bridge the gap between keeping the momentum and looking beyond, I want to highlight where we are and where we still need to go. We do have lovely ASIR and the economic and social implications of research innovation, and the work that I'm doing with my colleagues in trying to bring forward some of the key complexities in terms of how we look at research and innovation within the 21st century lens. That must continue, and thank you to Roman and Alex, and of course, all of those who have been really behind this initiative. That is inside the Commission, alongside all of the work that we're doing on the indicators as a stress testing exercise of where we're going wrong in terms of research and innovation. But we're still also speaking to ourselves. If we look at this beautiful group, how many of us have truly had conversations that were difficult with people outside our usual group, within the Commission, within the other institutions? One of those symbols was last week, actually, when we looked at the taxonomy vote inside the European Parliament, which clearly showed us again that we have not made enough progress. Because the fact of the matter is that we still need to place a value on science-based decision-making and also bring value across all of the policy work that we're doing. It can't just be about looking at indicators. It has to be about how do we use the value-based principles, for example, of the systems compass that we developed as the Club of Rome with Systemic and Janusz, who unfortunately has left, and instigate that, integrate that in all of our policy making. It also means that we need to take the donut on steroids, that we need to think through, and Kate has said this to me so many times, it's not just about the donut, it's also about ensuring that people start to integrate transformational economics across the board, in governance, in the economy, in the finance.
Thank you.
I'm almost finished. Lastly, to get out of our bubble, what are we now doing? We set up this new Earth for All, which is fundamental, and I want you all to join us on this journey because it has brought also most of the world thinking, not just the Western economic thinking, which unfortunately is still encapsulated in some of our new economic models, and brings in some of the new thinking also coming from some of our Southern economists and Southern thought leaders. That is the last point that I want to make, that we can't just stay within our little bubble here in the EU. We need to think of what are the implications of the European Green Deal on the rest of the world? How do we actually broaden the European Green Deal and our economic modeling and our thinking so that we integrate this across a much more global lens? I'll leave it at that. All the things that Jonathan indicated, we are also part of, and so many other initiatives. But let's make sure that our goal coming out of this call, thanks to you, Thomas, is we optimize our joint work for impact, because we've gone some steps forward, but last week and so many other indicators are showing us with the Ukrainian invasion that we can clearly go back to business as usual very quickly. So let's not be too complacent.
Thanks, Sandrine. And that was perfect concluding for the first part of the initiatives, and you can find many of these or all of these in the document that Thomas sent around, and we will put it on the Deal homepage as well, also the recording of this event. So yeah, happy for you to follow up on this. And over to Obi for the second part.
Thanks, Christoph. So you're more or less running to time, I think, but please, for all the speakers in this section, where we're going to turn now to visions and testimonials on deep sustainability transformation in the planetary emergency, we're going to begin with a short video, which is from Karen Fabry, who's not able to join us today, but because she's in Canada at the moment.
Dear Thomas, greetings from Canada, a land where many perceive infinite abundance. There's 3 messages I'd like to pass today. The first is gratitude. I'm very thankful for all that you've done for us, to keep us informed, to keep us aware throughout the years as sustainability advisor. The next keyword I'd like to share with you is moose. That's because you've asked me to say something about food systems, and I think you agree with me that food systems are the elephant in the room. But here in Canada, there aren't many elephants. So let's just say that food systems are the moose in the room. Without fixing food systems, we can't fix climate, we can't fix the environment, we cannot fix health, and we cannot fix natural resource scarcity. But we must act on many fronts. There's no silver bullet, and we all have to put our heads together to make steps forward. The last word I'd like to share with you is joy. Why? Because we find joy in small things and large things, because it's joy that motivates us and gives us hope for the future. And in this respect, I wish you much, much joy for the future, for your future. And Thomas, may the force be with you, so you can live long and prosper, and you can go boldly where no one else has gone before. Signing out from Canada. Bye-bye to all.
So thanks to Karen. We have our next speakers are from the Foresight community at the Commission. So Laurent Bontu and Nikos Kastrinos. So maybe we can hear from you now.
Thank you very much, Obi. Thank you very much, Thomas, for inviting us here today. Great message from Karen just before. Thomas, thank you very much for having injected so much energy into this debate, having fed this community with so much information, and having helped us actually create these communities of understanding that I always talk about, in Foresight. And I think one of the challenges we're facing is how to ensure that our common future is desirable, because we hear all these terrible trends, terrible messages about people despairing about the disappearing world, which is the world of growth, and other people saying, but this is going to be all terrible because climate change is going to engulf us all into all these terrible destructions. So we have to help people imagine what a feasible new world could look like, as a whole system. The systemic understanding is so important. And Foresight is there to actually help people open their mind and stop wanting to maintain business as usual, really imagine what could be possible. We're facing the challenge of making policy here, knowledge and science are not enough. They must be made to inform policy. And this community that we've helped animate, and feed and create is there to actually bring this information to policy. And actually, all of us, we are disseminating throughout the commissions from many of them. And so we have a chance to build this message forward. This is our daily challenge at the JRC. You've helped us do that. So thank you very much again, and hope to stay in touch and continue these very stimulating intellectual discussions about sustainability with you in your active retirement stage. Thank you again.
Thank you, Laurent. I don't know if Nikos wanted to add something.
Thomas has asked me to talk about visions of the future, and most of my visions are actually rather scary. But in Foresight, we think that we should not be presumptuous about the future. So it could be that in the future, humans develop empathy, not only for their kin, but also for other creatures that inhabit the planet, and that people in positions of leadership develop an aversion to kicking the can and the sense of responsibility and ownership, and feelings of pride and guilt for promises kept and promises broken. The thing is that I cannot see any way of getting there that does not involve institution and that is not founded on avoiding conflicts of interest. I find that there is no bigger biasing factor than interest. And even the most honorable people have difficulty judging freely when in positions of conflict of interest. And the integrity of people and institutions is actually the cornerstone of good governance. And as somebody said before, without good governance, we cannot hope to save the planet. So in my mind, Thomas has been an exemplar of integrity, a tireless promotion of science and of thinking about the future in our institutions. And most importantly, he kept doing this when it was really, really uncomfortable and really, really challenging. And this is very important because the future may be nice, but it's not guaranteed to be. In fact, the odds are increasingly stacked against the future being nice, but it would take creativity, tireless work, and dedication. And Thomas has actually given us a great example to follow. So thank you very much, Thomas. And I hope that we continue to see each other.
Thank you very much, Laurent and Nikos. And maybe now it's time to hear from Kerstin. Thank you very much for waiting there. Kerstin Kulis is from the Fraunhofer ISI.
Yes, I'm in applied research and therefore very practical. And that's where I know Thomas from. I know him from many, many Foresight meetings, workshops, conferences, and in presence and in virtual. And as our facilitators always feared him because he brought so many good things in. And I always loved to have him in my group because he brought links, he brought many information, he analyzed, he thought things through, and he even sent me this one. I still have it on my desk for my next project in Sustainable Bioeconomy Horizons. And we are on food systems for the next project. So we make use of what he always brought in. And Thomas always thought things through. Even the most boring scenarios, he always warned us. He warned us about environmental damages, breakdowns, societal disruptions, and many other things. But even the most boring scenarios, the business as usual scenarios, or the back to normal after pandemic scenarios, they will, and not only may, they definitely will lead to disaster in the long run. Thomas, first, I wish that you were wrong there, because there is still a long way to go and a lot to change that we will not end in a disaster. And second, I wish you personally an imbalance with much more utopia and positive visions and less dystopia. Good vibrations, health, and also may the force be with you. Alles Gute zum Geburtstag. May the energy be with you for the next years to support us all. Thanks.
Thank you, Kerstin. And now we're going to hear from Sebastian Treyer from IDDRI.
Hello, and thank you for organizing this meeting. So I work I'm leading a think tank in Paris, the Institute for Sustainable Development and International Relations. I just want to be the witness of the fact that Thomas also works outside the Commission with lots of people who are trying to transform the institutions from the outside. And it's really very amazing to see how Thomas has been able to really embody transversality in action, transformation in action. And I think really the way that from within and from the outside, Thomas has facilitated and diffused knowledge to a network of actors that have taken on board the transformative issue as a mission. And I would say even the mission in action, taking the mission perspective of the GRTD, with in mind the long-term radically disruptive vision of how we should function in the future, and then working innovatively to open up pathways to get there. And this is really the meaning of foresight. The last word I wanted to say is that I'd really be keen, Thomas, to continue discussing with you, because I think with all we've heard on the Doughnut economics, what we will be doing at TIDRI is really trying to discuss how we need to renegotiate the social contract in a world where we need sufficiency. And this links between sufficiency policies or sufficiency-oriented development and the necessity to renegotiate the social contract will probably necessitate that we all around the table, all around this virtual table, continue discussing with one another, and that Thomas stays in the loop somehow. Thanks a lot again.
Thank you very much, Sebastian. And now we turn to another area of activity that Thomas, another group that Thomas has been very much involved in, which is EU Staff for Climate, as you may realize from the picture behind me, where we have, I believe, Anna Smedeby and others.
Yes, I think it's me speaking for EU Staff for Climate, where Thomas is, of course, a founding member. Unprecedented change. That was the title of your paper, Thomas, which informed then the EU Staff for Climate petition, which I and 11,000 other of our colleagues signed in 2019. Asking for exactly that. Unprecedented, that means it's never been done before. It means that we can't benchmark and that there is no best practice to follow. It means a step into the unknown. And listening to all the speakers here, that means that we all agree that this is what we need to do. So why is it so hard to get together and actually do it, to do something which really will change things? So how is it that we feel so powerless, since we know that business as usual is no longer an option? Our action and policy making is to a large extent based on the assumption, or perhaps the hope, that techno fixes are going to make it possible for us to continue as we are. But I think that deep down inside we know it's not true. We can string things out a little bit longer, but is this the responsible thing to do? Now, it's not politically expedient and it's not an easy sell, but at what point are we going to be courageous enough to tell the truth and to take responsibility? And I'm talking about personal responsibility. Are you still flying? Are you eating meat? And our responsibility as an institution. It's easy to throw our hands up in the air and say there's nothing we can do, but it isn't true. The world is watching us. We have the right of initiative with a commission, and we can start by telling the truth to the world and to ourselves. If we don't start, who will? And this would really be taking Thomas's work forward. I'm speaking here for the members of EU Staff for Climate. To all of you, take courage and let us take up a responsibility and let's move. Thanks.
Anna, thank you very much indeed. There are probably others among us here who are also from EU Staff for Climate. So thanks to everybody in that team, also because at the time I saw this coming around, and probably many of us did. I think you had about 10,000 signatures at the time when I looked at it, which is about a third of the staff of the organizations. So congratulations on having brought everybody together, and let's see what we could do with that. Now, the next speaker we have is Yamina Saib from OpenEXP and IPCC lead author.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, Thomas, for inviting me to this event. I regret that I never met the crazy guy you are. At the time I was at the GRC, otherwise we would have together, I'm sure, pushed more the boundaries at the European Commission and beyond. From my research, what I see is that transformation is no longer enough, because these are concepts based on incremental changes, and we don't anymore have time for incremental changes. And what we need is to shift to metamorphosis. Metamorphosis is complete change of the system that where we were raised and grew up, the system that we have today. And I do believe that the EU and the European Commission could be the drivers for this metamorphosis that we need at a global level. I regret that in the IPCC report, I couldn't push to have the word metamorphosis in the framing chapter, which is chapter later one, because my focus when I was at the IPCC was to include the concept of sufficiency in the IPCC report. And we succeeded in including even definition of sufficiency in the summary for policymakers, thanks to the support that we had from colleagues from the European Commission during the negotiations, and in very discreet way. So it worked very well to have scientists, policymakers pushing for this metamorphosis that we need. However, I don't think as Europeans we should and we could wait to the next IPCC report to make this metamorphosis happening, because we see today how hot it is everywhere in Europe, and we see the climate impact increasing, and the impact of the climate impact on the vulnerable ones is going to be extremely hard to live with. And that's why I hope that this meeting is just start of something new that we could work on from the EU perspective through the leadership of Thomas and other colleagues from the Commission to push the boundaries and to make sure that the metamorphosis that we need will happen in the next years. Thank you, and thank you, Thomas, so much for your leadership.
Thank you very much, Yamina. Now we have a video message from Jeroen Jans from the Inner Green Deal.
Dear Thomas, it's been a real privilege to collaborate with you, and I thank you for joining our Inner Green Deal programs from the very beginning. True to your values, you joined our first event by bike, even if it meant cycling for over an hour to get to the location outside Brussels. And the recent online program you joined became so rich with your posts in the chat, with references to scientific articles, that we decided to save the chat and make it a key component of our program. Thomas, you have a wonderful mind and a big heart, and I loved our conversations about the root causes of this climate crisis and how to address these. How we need to let go of GDP as the central organizing principle of our society and think more deeply about the world we want to live in. I think not only about science, technology, and funding, all important in their own ways, but also how to engage the hearts and minds of people, and how to help people reconnect to nature and inspire confidence in our ability to change ourselves and the world around us. So all topics that I feel you will continue to guide us on. So I look forward to continue to collaborate, but for now, salute you and thank you for the fantastic contribution you made to Europe and to our beautiful planet. Thank you, Thomas.
Thank you to Jeroen Jans. And now we would like to hear from Jean-Pascal van Ypersel from UCL.
Hi, everybody. I've here the first IPCC report published in 1990, more than 30 years ago. It was already announcing some of the crises we are increasingly experiencing. A small quote from the Summary for Policymakers as an example. It is most likely that episodes of high temperatures will become more frequent with an increase in the average temperature. And we know this is happening right now in Europe. The reaction from much of the international community, from most political so-called leaders, businesses, or citizens, was similar to this monkey reaction. Close its eyes and sleep. And we know today that climate is only one of the many crises humanity has to face because too many monkeys close their eyes. There's also the loss of nature, the many kinds of pollution, the pandemics and health crisis, the food crisis, and the rising inequalities and injustices, both within and between countries. What does Thomas have to do with this monkey? It's very simple. Thomas is waking him up, preventing him to sleep further. Thomas is also telling the monkey that all the above crises are interconnected and that addressing them needs a fundamental, a systemic revision of the way humanity and the EU in particular relates to nature, the environment, and the natural and social planetary boundaries. He points the monkey to the doughnut economy, pushing the EU beyond its invented boundaries so it can respect the real planetary boundaries. Thank you, Thomas, and I hope you will continue to prevent the monkey to shut its eyes and waking up.
Thank you very much, Jean-Pascal. So we have a video now from Olivier de Schutter, who's UN Special Rapporteur on extreme poverty and human rights and co-chair of IPS Food.
Well, I'm delighted to address you on the occasion of the departure of Thomas Arnold from the European Commission. My name is Olivier de Schutter. I am the United Nations Special Rapporteur on extreme poverty and human rights. And what I would like to reflect upon very briefly in paying homage to Thomas Arnold for all his work is how difficult it can be for someone working on sustainability, on the SDGs, within an organization such as the European Union and a body such as the European Commission. I would like here not to allude to the well-known difficulties having different DGs cooperate in what should be a transversal approach towards the realization of SDGs, managing a diversity of states that are increasingly able within the Council of the EU of blocking decisions, or indeed, as a third typical difficulty, overcoming the weight of lobbies that influence the policy making within the European Commission. These are well-known difficulties, but there is behind this a much more fundamental issue, which is that the European Union and the European Economic Community before that are really organizations that initially, in the 1960s, were conceived as growth-producing organizations. What was the idea? It was to create a common market, as it was then called, to achieve economies of scale, to favor cross-country competition so that the least competitive enterprises would have to disappear, and to homogenize and uniformize in order to ensure that the common market becomes a reality and that the obstacles to trade and investment are fully removed. Now, the European Economic Community was thus conceived as a growth-producing machine, one that would prioritize uniformity, not diversity, one that should favor competitiveness above everything else, one that did not pay attention initially to a territorial approach to the ecological transition, which was very much below the radars when the organization was established. And we need now to change this. In just a few years, the European Union must transform its DNA. It must favor not uniformity but diversity. It must move from a sectorial approach to issues to a transversal and territorial approach to issues. It should prioritize not efficiency but rather a form of resilience based on diversity. And it should pursue not growth at all costs and define growth as a condition for everything else. Rather, it should be able to invent a post-growth economy and society. So that is a difficulty Thomas Arnold has been facing for many years, and I really look forward to working with you all, with the successors of Thomas Arnold, in order to build this new European Union of our dreams. Many thanks indeed.
Thanks to you, Olivier de Schutter, for that video message. Now, Humberto Delgado from DG Environment. It's our penultimate official speaker, I think.
Thank you very much. Let me be quick by saying the following. I think Thomas has been influential on several of us, and maybe the best way to illustrate is to say how did he and his activities influence me. And actually, it was not so much on the environmental side that I follow for long, not the economic angle, but the social. So let me explain. There was this session on equity for which he invited me, and that forced me not only to listen to others, but also to reflect. And you know, we have often said on sustainable development, it's no longer about the three pillars, it's the three layers, the wedding model cake with the environment or the biosphere in the bottom, followed by society, followed by economy. And for some time, I was looking at this fundamental layer as the really prevailing one, but the debate on equity showed me the societal one is also prevailing, because sustainability is for humans and by humans. It's not for the planet as such, nor by computers or by angels, by humans. And we humans compare our interests and our happiness with the others. We want to be on board of sharing the cake, let's say. So it's fundamental, this element of equity. If it goes beyond certain limits, there's no sustainability, because, well, we are humans. Two final thoughts. One is from nature that I follow more closely. I think there's a powerful element on nature for sustainability, which comes from biodiversity being a good candidate for a token of sustainability, meaning the man or woman in the street will understand this simple thought: we can't really be sustainable if we keep destroying nature, can we? So it has some power from that. And not to leave the economic angle without a reflection, I think there's a powerful buzzword coming, which is regenerative economy. In the sense, we have been looking to impacts, limiting impacts, and so forth, but we need an economy that gives back. This links well with restoration, and restoration is hope that we need very much on the message. So, Thomas, thanks for your influence. I look forward to remain being influenced by you and your activities. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Umberto. Now, and Sandrine was panicking slightly there, I realized, but our final speaker is Adelaide Charlier, who is perhaps from a different generation, from Youth for Climate Belgium. Adelaide, over to you.
Thank you very much. I hope you can all hear me.
Yeah.
It's an honor to be part of this call today and to have had the time to listen. I want to go back to the start of the meeting, the very first video we saw. 25%. We need to be 25% to rearrange society. That's a lot. That's 1 person out of 4 that will be active in making a change. Every 4 people you meet have to be by your side and writing with you this new narrative. It may sound easy for some, and it might sound a bit harder for others, but hard is nothing compared to the necessary actions needed to defend a livable life on Earth. We need to make 25% our mission, like you did, Mr. Arnold, or maybe I can now say Thomas, because 25% is also the amount of animal and plant species that are already threatened with extinction. 25% is the amount of ice that has already melted in the Antarctic since 1980s. 25% is the land mass of the Northern Hemisphere, the permafrost. Its warming is a climate bomb. 25% is the amount of deforestation due to intensive agriculture. To honor the legacy of those 25%, who are no longer with us, let's be the 25% resisting and alive, both inside institution and mostly in the streets, now even more with you, Thomas. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Adelaide. And well, now we are not exactly on time. We're a little bit over time because actually the person we need to hear from is Thomas. So maybe you can stay on a few minutes just to listen to Thomas. After all, we're all here for him. And for those of you who want to share some words, then I think Claudia and others have been sharing the Kudo board where where you can leave some words if you haven't already done so. So Tassos, I think I hand over to you now, just to introduce Thomas.
Yes, just a few words from my side. I always believe that the farewell is above all a celebration. And I think today, thanks to you, Thomas, we celebrate passion, we celebrate public service at its best, and at the end of the day, we celebrate the beauty of the human mind. But dear Thomas, there is no great escape. Everybody wants to hear from you. So this is your time. The time has come. The floor is yours. It's with great pleasure that I give you the floor. Thomas.
Thank you, Tassos. Colleagues, friends, partners,
guests. I've reached the age limit of 65 yesterday, and I shall retire from active service of the European Commission at the end of this month. First, thank you. Thank you to you, Kate. Cooperating with you and your team over the years has been a great honor, helping to activate ideas, actions towards a more sustainable economic model and well-being across the institution. Thank you for all of you participating in today's event and for preparing and running it. Thank you to all the speakers who've shared their passion and insights on how to keep up momentum and how to move beyond. This has been a firework of transformative energy. Thank you, Maciek, Joachim, Frank, Nick, Roman, Barbara, Laure, Sasha, Lorenzo, Peter, Jonathan, Sandrine, Karen, Laurent, Nikos, Kerstin, Sebastian, Elena, and the EU staff for climate crowd. Yamina, Anna, Jeroen, Jean-Pascal, Olivier, Umberto, Janusz, and Adelaide. And thank you who have helped to set up and run the show. Claudia, Tassos, Obi, Christian, and Jérôme. Thank you to all my wonderful colleagues in DG RTD across the Commission and beyond. You're too many to name all here without doing injustice to anyone omitted. Throughout my jobs in the Commission, I've been involved in many different work strands. This is allowed to cross-pollinate ideas, to draw the larger picture within its interconnected systems, to leverage multiple wins and co-benefits, but also to highlight blind spots, voice dissonances, and politely put, point to areas of further improvement in our approaches and policies. Thank you to our institution. I've had the opportunity to have a great career in the European Commission. Many would have dreamed to have. While aware of this privilege, I think I can say with confidence that I've delivered on advancing sustainability across the institution and raising awareness about our deep transformation ahead. Deeply transformative policies are made of positive solutions built on systemic disruption. Thank you to the community of the RTD Knowledge for SDG talks. From these talks, we've all learned a lot on systemic sustainability challenges, on the thread of Earth system tipping points and the power of positive and social tipping points, on inequality, its links to planetary pressure and lifestyles, on the need for transformative economics, on why elsewhere and later count in the sustainability conversation, global spillovers from our overconsumption and discounting the future are not laws of nature. And I'm so grateful to meet and contribute to build EU Staff for Climate. We've helped our leaders to dare and be more ambitious, as we demonstrated convincingly with a petition signed by more than 11,000 colleagues, that there is strong support from inside the institution to come up with bold policies that are up to the challenges of climate breakdown and the planetary emergency. And Anna, you've mentioned our discussion paper, Unprecedented Change Now. It actually has a subtitle. And the subtitle is A Positive Journey Beyond the Comfort Zone. And this is really important that it ends also with a positive vision that there are difficulties ahead, but somehow we need to land possibly in something more positive. Now, what I want to do now is, I have a couple of slides, very briefly, to talk about a couple of hard challenges, uncomfortable messages, and unconventional solutions. So I have 3 quotes. The first is from the IPCC. The scientific evidence is unequivocal. Climate change is a threat to human well-being and the health of the planet. Any further delay in concerted global action will miss a brief and rapidly closing window to secure a livable future. From the Biodiversity and Ecosystems panel last week, there's a dominant global focus on short-term profits and economic growth, often excluding the consideration of multiple values of nature and policy decisions. The causes of the global biodiversity crisis and the opportunities to address them are tightly linked to the ways nature is valued in political and economic decisions at all levels. The third one, from the International System Change Compass, where Janusz has collaborated. The European Green Deal and its initiatives are not tackling the major driver of emissions and environmental degradation, which is overconsumption in high-income countries, including in Europe. So those findings are clear. One, we have no time. Second, the economic model, which is underlying, with its underlying assumptions and value systems, is a root cause for our problems. And three, there's no solution without addressing the root causes of the planetary emergency in its global context. And what I like very much is the eighth way to think like a 21st century economist that Kate has organized. And one of the final runners was systems change rather than the systems case rather than the business case. And this is really something we need to look at. Many of those desperately and urgently needed sustainability transformations or metamorphoses, they have a systems case. Also, they may not yet or will never have a business case. Our responsibility in public policy would it not be to pursue the systems case. The awareness for the depth of change needed. I don't think that we have many climate deniers in Europe. How bad things are is not in dispute. That climate change is a threat to human civilization has moved up from doomism into the party line adopted in council conclusions. Yet what is not yet omnipresent is the awareness how deep and systemic will have to be the unprecedented change needed for human civilization to survive and possibly to thrive. Climate change, nature breakdowns, those are the symptoms, not the disease. The disease is rooted in the way human civilization is organized currently with its power relations and money flows, but also much deeper with its worldviews, its values and belief systems, its strives and aspirations. We've siloed concerns and conversations everywhere which ignore the climate and planetary emergency, while those would be central. When we talk about the stock markets or the summer sales in the news, this is mostly disconnected from the climate, nature or resource. We talk about those issues as if we were not in a crisis. Then, of course, we need the right technologies, if they're well governed and if they have the directionality towards where it's needed. But technological promise can also fuel climate delay discourse. If we just simply rely and say technology which will be discovered in the future will fix it, then this is not what will allow us now to enter into the deep and hard, sometimes mitigation actions that are needed. We cannot postpone the tough work of deep mitigation and climate change action today. We can't even rely on compensation and offsetting. Those are increasingly unveiled as flawed concepts. How often do we say we need everything that we have? So we need the nature-based solutions, and we need the self-healing capacity of nature, sui generis, to contribute to mitigate climate change. We cannot use them as blanco checks just simply to write off dirty activities that we continue. And more importantly, looking into the future, we may need new governance arrangements to avoid that powerful interests push for large-scale geoengineering, not as a last resort to avoid the worst consequences of climate breakdown, but as an upcoming opportunity to compensate for the temporary continuation of a pathway driven by the desire for endless economic growth. We can move to the next one. We have many, next slide, please. We have many existing tools, but we don't exploit them at full. One of them is the circular economy. The inner circles of the circular economy, they are at the center. This is first reducing, then it is repairing and reusing. This is where we can create jobs in the repair economy. This is where we can develop the gift economy. Then only comes recycling, which is a limited potential and often means dumping of waste to the south or waste accumulating in the ocean. Beyond waste management, the challenge is to move to zero waste. This is not only about sustainable product footprint for all the products that we continue to consume as if there were no planetary emergency. It is about reducing consumerism in the first place. The new rush towards demand-side measures, this is good news. Now, for the first time, it comes up much bolder also in the IPCC report on mitigation. The greatest avoid potential comes from reducing long-haul aviation and providing short-distance, low-carbon urban infrastructures. So we have the silver bullets, cycling and walking is part of it. Why are we not jumping much more boldly on those non-technological silver bullets that we have? In the question, in the conversation on sufficiency, it is of course also how will we combine sufficiency with well-being, with fulfillment, with life satisfaction? How do we drive happy frugality and avoid unhappy frugality felt as deprivation or as renouncing? It's a strange thing. We have a resource scarcity or perceived resource scarcity which coexists with stuff overflow and obesity in many parts of the world. On a finite planet, it's just simply a matter of fact the social dimension involves redistribution and probably also consumption corridors. The richest 1% have consumption-based emissions which are twice as high than the poorest half of humanity. The upper 10% are responsible for half of all consumption-based emissions. The other 90% of humanity share the other half. If you assume an equal carbon budget for all, the upper 1% income percentile would need to reduce their carbon footprint by 97%, the upper 10% by 90%, while the lower half of humanity could triple. How could a donut economy or a donut broken down to the individual or to the household level look like? Could it be a consumption corridor between a floor defined by need and dignity and a ceiling defined by overshoot and excess? Beyond possible per capita household energy budgets, which may now come maybe pretty soon as a consequence of the penury due to the war, should we not have more generalized approaches of per capita resource and emission budgets as a response to the planetary emergency? And private households, they're usually privileged in the current energy shortage scenarios, but not all private households are alike. Maybe a fresh approach could be per capita household energy budgets at decent level for all private households, while at the same time supporting poor households that cannot pay themselves for their capita energy budget. How much of everything do we need decently globally? Should this not be based on what we need and not on what we can afford? There will, of course, be increasing resistance against the green transformation. This will organize. This resistance will be captured and promoted by vested interests of business as usual. What form of government, what democracy is needed to face the planetary emergency? Can the transformation be peaceful and within the realm of democracy? Now we are already experiencing how corporate capture of food security and energy poverty are used to water down climate and environmental ambition. Food security, energy poverty need to be addressed systemically. The current globally converging lifestyle aspirations, they may not be compatible with the survival of human civilization. The American dream is broken. is broken. We will not have 9 to 10 billion people driving a Tesla. We will not have 9 or 10 billion people in the world living in car dependent suburbs. We will not deploy thousands of loading stations in social housing areas where there are no private parking spaces, when the space is also needed for cycling paths, children playgrounds, or trees. What we need is new visions of a good life. Human strive is solidly anchored in our societies, education systems. Learn, work harder to get a better paid job, to afford a better life, with a bigger car, regular flights to faraway destinations. Now, are these fundamentals of our human strive now being questioned in the Anthropocene? Is now all this bad if in excess? And how much is in excess? And how can we find together or co-create those new visions of a good life, a new dream 2.0? And this unprecedented change, it also includes refitting worldviews and belief systems. It has become essential and urgent to bring our worldviews, values, and belief systems in line with our planet. In the Anthropocene, this means that we need to move from anthropocentric world views, considering man above and against nature, such as in a lot of the Western philosophy and religion, see Genesis 1, the bioholistic worldviews, possibly belief systems with humans as part of the web of life. And we have examples for this in European history. We have Alexander von Humboldt, for instance, who has created a European, the idea of the web of life of which humans are part. Next to the European Green Deal and the European Bauhaus, should we not have a world's life web, something like a third pillar in the EU trilogy of flagships? While the Bauhaus has introduced beauty as a soul to the Green Deal, the life web could allow to connect all these cultural and civilizational issues with nature. There may be challenges towards our traditional concepts of freedom and liberty, in particular in the individualistic Western societies. And they may bound the right to free enterprise. It's, however, an opportunity to bring in other value systems, such as from indigenous communities, but also integrate new right holders, animals, rivers, forests, ecosystems. What does this mean for policies? This is incredibly difficult territory if policies have to move into the uncharted space of setting lifestyle standards, of dealing with behaviors, worldviews, belief systems. This is usually not part of the policy space in democratic societies. However, excluding these issues from the policy space is not an option, as these are so closely linked to the root causes of the climate emergency. If the EU and other government actors may have to move more into uncharted and possibly uncomfortable policy areas which are not traditionally considered as part of policy making, then this needs more than regulation. This may also need that the EU becomes a convening powerhouse for deep sustainability. And this then means that it is not only about sustainability leadership in the sense of selling green technologies from Europe, it is also maybe to develop a space through innovation governance where in a co-creation or co-leapfrogging mode, those new visions of a good life are created. This would be a fundamental shift what governments is, what diplomacy is doing at present. But this is something that we probably have to move into. And maybe my last point I want to make here is that redefining peace in the Anthropocene. This may be Europe's new peace project. And I'm mentioning this now in the middle of the Ukraine war. But as Antonio Guterres has reminded us last year, we need to make peace with nature. We may now also make peace with people. And this is still not yet done. And this is probably one of the big upcoming challenges. Let me conclude now very briefly. Is there a reason for hope? It's a frequent question. My personal view is yes. If we got real about what are the symptoms and where is the disease. If we tackle the root causes of the planetary emergency without complacency and being trapped by vested interests, yes, there's hope. If we acted as if there were a crisis, collectively and beyond self-interest, or the understanding, at least, that cooperating may be the best possible self-interest. If we do not get it right collectively as Homo sapiens, there may be terrible suffering in an uncomfortable world, but we still have some choice to prevent the worst. We have to enter now the age of cooperation. We need to move from competitiveness to cooperativeness. With competitiveness, extractivism, and exploitation, we've run into the planetary emergency. With cooperation, regeneration, and inclusion, we will hopefully get out again. Shared prosperity within the limits of the planet may be our best lifeline. We need to unlearn the story of survival of the fittest, the story of lone success through human strife. In times of adversity, cooperation and solidarity are even more crucial for the success of species. Cooperation and solidarity are part of our hope and of our margin of maneuver for agency. Yes, we need a new story. Let us be as confident in our creativity to change the system, and to do this big metamorphosis as we are often into our ingenuity to invent new technologies. The biggest utopia is business as usual, economy as usual, society as usual, lifestyle as usual, or maybe this is even the biggest dystopia, as Kerstin would say. It will not work. We know it, or at least we intuitively guess it. And yet we are sticking to it as if we were addicted. So sorry, I've become a bit emotional through this, but I can circulate all those remarks with underlying references. And with this, I think, okay, it has been said already that I leave you with these insights and thoughts, maybe to inspire current or future EU policies or the legacy for the next Commission. I shall remain committed to the sustainability cause and continue following sustainability issues from wherever. I shall be around in DG RTD as an active senior. And if you're interested in these issues, let's stay in touch.